Welcome. Welcome. Yes, settle down. Settle down. Settle down. Good afternoon, fellow fantasy footballers. Welcome to the inaugural Midseason review. I'm your host, Eric Oliveira. Let me go right ahead. I'm going to start answering some obvious questions. Running through your head like, doesn't he know he's about to embarrass himself? And does this guy even work? And also, is his company paying him to do this? And the answer to each of those is yes, most of the time, and technically, yes, they are paying me for this. But, you know, what I will note is that I probably worked harder on this than anything I've done in the past week, but it's all for you, the league mate. So now, without further complicating the matter, let's get right into it. Welcome back. Now, would it be a mid-season review without revisiting what got all of this started? The draft. For some of us, we spent hours doing mock drafts, replaying different scenarios in our head, looking up oodles of information to get the slightest bit of edge. And then there was just Eric, who just had to draft CMC. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked out for him too well, despite his record. But let's take a look and see who the studs and duds have been so far, based on their capital spent. So let's move on. Next segment. So let's revisit the draft, studs and duds. And we're going to start off with the top 5 value studs. Now, this is a good list. I tried my best to, get as much out of the draft recap as I possibly could, and I tried to be as impartial as possible. So at number 5, we have, in the 11th round, pick number 6, the current wide receiver 8, drafted by none other than John Dinsmore, Marquise Brown. So has anybody actually watched this man play this year? He's got it all. He's got speed, he's got explosiveness, he's got shiftiness. The only thing he lacks are some sticky stuff in his hands. You could take that one of 2 ways. He could be the number 1 wide receiver on the year if he controlled his drops. So you got so many missed touchdowns, but still an insane value pickup for John. So congrats to John. Moving on to number 4, with the 5th pick in the 10th round, we have the RB9 on the year, James Conner, also drafted by John Dinsmore. Who had James Conner on the bingo card for rushing touchdown leader? I don't think anybody did. So put your fucking hand down because you're a filthy liar. But Conner is on an absolute tear this year and is definitely providing John some much needed support after Saquon continues with his injury-riddled career. Probably want to stop drafting him in the first round, John. Next up on the list, number 3, we have the wide receiver 4, drafted by none other than Kevin, Tiny Steam Sucks Richardson. In the 8th round with the 6th pick, Jamar Chase. So many egregious drops in preseason, so many NFL analysts butchering this kid, so many people who are wrong. Chase has the most receiving yards in NFL history through 7 games. Obviously, the last 2 games we can't use, but this is a stat specifically for that. Blowing past star talents like Harlan Hill and Billy Houghton, who I frankly never heard of, and after looking them up, realized they went on to have subpar careers anyway. Rounding out the top 5 were Anquan Boldin and OBJ. And come to think of it, maybe Chase doesn't want to be on this list anymore. But for now, he's doing a great job for your team. Kevin. Again, number 2. There's a couple different ways I could have gone here. I thought this was the best way to do it. And in terms of value, of course, we're going to go with Cooper Kupp with the 4th round pick, 9th pick overall in that 4th round, and the current wide receiver 1 for Mike's team. So Cooper Kupp joined Jerry Rice as the only receivers to ever generate more than 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in the first 9 games of the season. This man is on a historic pace to break the 2,000-yard mark for a receiver, beating out Calvin Johnson's 1,964-yard season, albeit in 16 games. Cooper Kupp will have that extra game this year to try to pass that. But hot take, I do believe he will eventually break that record, barring injury. So, last but not least, number 1 on the top 5 value picks from this year's draft goes to George, who took this player in the 9th round, 8th pick in that round, wide receiver 3 overall, Deebo Samuel. So let's go over an analyst's take on Deebo Samuel from the preseason, and let's see if he was right. So somebody here wrote, Deebo is getting wildly overdrafted by the fantasy community, similar to last year. With Jimmy, this is a run-first offense with a pass-catching hierarchy of of Kittle, Ayuk, and then Debo. If Lance becomes a starter later this year, I would be inclined to hate Debo even more, because Lance's average depth of target will probably double Jimmy's. Debo catches most of his passes at the line of scrimmage. Now, that analyst happens to be Eric Oliveira. Pretty much a terrible take, clearly in the wrong. I don't really know who put this in the script, but I think we're just going to move on and pretend that that never happened. So let's take a quick commercial break here, and I'm going to go talk to the script writers. I'll see you later.
Progressive presents At Home with Baker Mayfield.
Hey, it's Baker from next door. I think I got one of your packages. I opened it by mistake.
Huh. You sure they're not yours?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not mine.
Huh. Online shopping, it's my curse.
You and me both.
Hey, you got a wheelbarrow I could borrow? I'm gonna do a little mulching.
Yeah, I'll bring it over.
You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of fucking shit. How fucking dare you? Oh, we're live. Hey, how's it going? So, sorry about that. Didn't realize that we had already gone back to filming, but we can just, continue on. Not a big deal here. We're a professional organization, obviously. So, let's move on to the top 5 biggest busts or disappointments, whatever you want to call them. And just as a caveat, this is not injury-based, so Raheem Mostert will not be making this list. Sorry, Chris. But number 5, 4th round, 8th pick, Corey. He'll be on this list twice. RB51, Miles Sanders. This is where the fun really begins. Trigger warning from here on out, as past trauma can return after the following segment. Here are the following 10 players taken immediately after Sanders. Cooper Kupp. I could end the list right there, right that moment, and that would be enough. But we're gonna keep going. Julio Jones, obviously a meh. Pat Mahomes, Amari Cooper, T.J. Hockenson, Kyler Murray, DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett, Josh Jacobs, Chris Godwin. Out of that entire list, you have 1 bust in Julio Jones and 2 meh players in Jacobs and Lockett. The rest are either top 10 or top 20 at the position, including Cooper Kupp, who's number 1 at the wide receiver position. Here's another fun stat. Through 7 games, Sanders rushed the ball 63 times. Through 3 games, Jordan Howard has rushed the ball 41 times. I'm going to take a look at my notes here. I believe that means Miles Sanders is in the doghouse. So I apologize to you, Corey. You were having a rough year. Number 4 on the list. I said injuries, but I never said anything about retirements. Number 4, Calvin Ridley. Round 2, pick 9 by Mike. Like I said before, I'm all for mental health awareness. So Mike, if you need mental health counseling after your player retires mid-season, please contact me and we can schedule a session. I charge $18 an hour, and the main method of counseling I use is to just have you watch your Cooper Kupp highlights over and over and over. And trust me, that should make you feel better. Number 3, I have on this list Julio Jones. Again, I wasn't going to use injury-based players, but I did want to include him because he is by far one of the worst picks in this year's draft. So Eric Schwartz took him 4th round, 10th pick overall, wide receiver 75. Big yikes. I'm sure Eric is feeling the same way about Julio Jones as Mike Vrabel does. Specifically this quote that Mike Vrabel said, I believe it was after week 2 or week 3, that would fall into the category of doing dumb fucking shit that hurts the team. Right there in bold letters. For Vrabel, it was a dumb penalty. For Eric, it's absolutely ruining his fantasy wide receiver room. The stench of Julio Jones has caused the collapse of Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay, and Antonio Brown. I think Keenan's sleeves have protected him. It's the only explanation. We move on to number 2 on the list, Brandon Ayuk. Now, picked in round 7, 3rd overall in that round. Wide receiver 70 on the year. And of course, Corey took him. I'll be honest, wide receiver 70 is pretty shocking. I thought he would be so much worse. You can cut him some slack for the start of the year, but he's unplayable and almost unrosterable at this point. The best part is he was hyped up tremendously by beat writers, only to lose his job to a guy that ran just 1 route last week on 15 snaps. Now you're all thinking, who's number 1 on the list? If you don't know, it's because I left him out of Eric's wide receiver room joke. And that is the other Eric who drafted this player in the 3rd round, 9th pick, wide receiver 64. If you don't know the number 1 player this year, I don't know what you're doing. You're not paying attention. It's Allen fucking Robinson. The biggest bust this year and one of the biggest busts of all time. We all know the stereotype about the Bears, but did anyone see this coming? I'm so sorry, Kevin. Even though you guys have been winning, the Bears are still trash. This man has had no more than 7 targets once since week 1. He's had no more than 68 yards per game on a specific game on the entire year. He's had 1 touchdown pass caught in week 2, where his stat line was 2 catches for 24 yards. The list goes on and on. Congratulations, Allen. In the inaugural midseason review, you have been crowned the biggest loser. I'd hand you the trophy, but I'm scared you'd drop it. And again, let's take a quick commercial break because I am fucking fired up.
Progressive presents At Home with Baker Mayfield.
Got another one by the container. Always camping by the containers. I know. Hey, check my backside. I'm gonna go get him.
Baker!
Boom! Game over.
Babe! Babe, can you please turn the TV down? Neighbors just called again.
Told you that we were too loud.
Continue. Get ready.
Guys, 3rd time this week!
Okay, and we're back. So again, thank you for sitting through that commercial break. We're going to move on to our next segment called Correlation Doesn't Imply Causation. And I'll be walking you through some of the peculiar stats I've been able to dig up on the season so far. So, Ford Broncos, we'll start with you guys. You may be 1st overall, but you're actually 8th in manager efficiency with 86.68% potential points scored. Your team is also blowing everyone out of the water in RB points with 505.7, while the league average is 382.3. We can probably ascertain that the reason for that is you were allowed to draft Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, and Joe Mixon in the first 2 rounds, and nobody stopped you, including Corey. Thanks, Corey. Well done. The most important stat is that Paul is your biggest enemy. If I were you, I wouldn't want to see him in the playoffs since he just knows the key to beating you. I'm sorry, there's no joke for that, but he's beating you twice, and that's kind of ridiculous. So I don't know what to tell you at this point. But next up, we're going to move on to. Sorry, I actually have to work right now, but I'm going to cut this out. So, and there you go, I'm done. So, took about 2 seconds in your time, if I do the cut correctly, with my first time video editing. So we're gonna move on to John, the Dominators, right now. So next up we have the man with the least points against in the league, beating the average by 68 points. Similar to Kevin, John falls in 10th for manager efficiency with only 86.15 potential points scored. I'm beginning to see this as a trend for the good teams though. On a good note, you do lead the league with 12.3 gut points earned, which is based on starting a player with a lower projection, and then they beat out the higher projected player on your bench. So congrats for that. It's a dumb fucking stat, but good job. We're gonna see a lot of this later on with all these random stats that I pulled. So Eric Schwartz, TD Bundy, you're up next. The cooler Eric comes in as the 4th most efficient manager, breaking that trend with a 90.05% potential points scored rating. Eric has also lost 0 winnable games, meaning his roster decisions have all worked out at this point. Back to an earlier point, however, his wide receiver room is extremely poor, with only 285.3 points scored, while the league average is 427.9. That is laughably bad. Even TJ has outscored you, and he's only picked up players 1 week out of the season. Next up, we've got Chris. Diggy Summer Raiders. Unsurprisingly, Chris comes in number 1 for most points scored in the wide receiver room. Thanks, Paul. Beating the league average by over 100 points. He also ends up in 1st for the tight end category as well, albeit at a much lower difference of 60 points. Where Chris continues to shine is in the roster ranking trend, holding the top spot for 7 straight weeks according to fantasy experts. On another point, Chris is the 3rd most efficient manager at 90.93%, but he still could have won two more games if he'd have made better roster decisions according to the model. 7 roster decisions to be exact. So he could have made a lot of different choices, but he always fucked up. Probably Michael Carter would have won you a couple of those games. Gonna take a quick break here, have another commercial.
Progressive presents At Home with Baker Mayfield.
Good boy. No bags. See, I left the bags inside. I was gonna go inside and grab them and come back out. I'll be right back.
And we're back. So with the hottest team picture, we have Mike's team, son of Sam Darnold. Poor guy. Comes the guy with the most points against in the league, but also the most consistent lineup with the standard deviation of only 15.12 points. Other than that, Mike is about middle of the pack in every single statistic except in-season player retirements, which he leads in a resounding advantage over the entire league. Next up, we have the Lynn Bodenfeld Black Widows. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Wow. A lot to say about this team. It's so hard to judge Paul's players when they get tossed around effortlessly, like the Jets' inability to find a franchise quarterback. But Paul does come in at the 7th most efficient manager, but he's greatly helped by the opponent's inability to score against them with a 2nd least points against stat. This has led to Paul garnering 3 upset wins. The most impressive stat our team behind the scenes was able to scrounge up is that Paul actually leads the league in gut points earned with negative 68.46. So yeah, he led, but the wrong way. And yes, Paul's gut checks are literally just not working. This gives us the statistics to confirm that Paul is actually getting lucky, and we don't need to fear him for the rest of the season. So you should be okay based on that stat given. Or maybe you shouldn't be because nobody can score against this guy. Next up, we got myself. Picklin Dix. So, next we move on to the man who just might give Corey his 2nd win on the year. Fuck Matt Ryan, fuck Josh Rosen, and fuck whatever that Franks guy is. I hate my life today. My team is about as middle of the pack as they come, with just about everything being as average as it can get. But I do grade out well in manager efficiency, currently 2nd with a 91.02 percentage, along with 12 gut points earned, 2nd in that category behind John. But seriously, I can't find better stats than that. My team is just extremely average. So, next up, the Tannehills have eyes. George, I'm seeing a lot of red statistics here. And you have the same record as a lot of people in this league, 5-5. So, you are 8th in points for, you're 4th in points against, you're 9th in efficiency metrics, and you have the 8th best league score. You also are in Paul's category of having a negative 52.68 gut points earned, 2nd worst behind Paul. You are getting astoundingly bad quarterback play, coming in at 80 points below the league average, along with poor tight end, defense, and kicker scoring versus the league. The crazy stat of all is that you've been the underdog in every single matchup, and your record is 5-5. Whatever you're doing, it's somehow still working, and I wish I had your luck. Next up on the list, we have Patrick H.H. Mahomes, of course, TJ. TJ, if I was concerned about the red on Georgia stats, you and Corey should be even more concerned. 9th in points for, 9th in potential points scored. That means if you had perfect roster decisions, the 9th best week and 2 winnable games lost. You also have this amazing stat where your opponent's wide receivers are scoring over 100 points more against you than the league average. It's just a great matchup. I don't know why. But the only good stat that you've got is that you're the most efficient manager, but that isn't hard when your bench is fucking trash. And last but not least, we have Ed gaining more yards. Corey. Let's just say you're 9th or 10th in every single worthwhile stat. You even had 4 winnable games that could have swung had you made better roster decisions. I'm not even mad at you, but as a league, we're all disappointed. Over the last 2 years, you've won 4 games with a record of 4-18. That will become 5 wins this week, and I'll go crawl in a ditch and die. Thank you. So, with that, we will close out our broadcast with a super duper locked and loaded full send championship prediction. Based on all statistics and projections that I've compiled with my hashtag ad 47 Amazon Web Services servers, I project with full confidence that TD Bundy will face off against Diggy Sum Raiders in a grueling Week 17 championship matchup, or I believe Week 18, with a scoreline of 147 to 139. I will also make a bonus prediction. Both Mike and myself will miss the playoffs while George and Paul slide in on the final day, with Paul even winning his first round matchup in an upset over John. With that, we've come to the conclusion of the inaugural midseason review. I hope you all enjoyed your time with me and the crew. We work endlessly to provide you the top-notch content that you pay for, and look forward to your feedback next year. I'll leave you with a quote by a man named Mark Twain that I find relevant to our show. Use this how you'd like. There are 3 kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. And for that, I'm Eric Oliveira, signing off.